It happened on a rainy Tuesday night, one of those evenings when the city feels just a little too quiet, a little too tense. Claire was closing up the bookstore she managed downtown, wrapping her coat tighter around her as thunder rumbled in the distance. The streets were nearly empty. She took her usual shortcut through the alley, the one she'd walked 100 times without worry. But that night, everything changed. A figure lunged from the shadows, masked, desperate, and armed. Claire froze. Her scream barely left her lips before he grabbed her bag and shoved her against the wall. For a terrifying second, she thought this was the end. But then, from nowhere, a man appeared. Fast. Calm. Dangerous in the way only someone trained to be could be. He tackled the robber, disarmed him, and made sure Claire was safe, without saying a single word. By the time police sirens echoed in the distance, the man had vanished into the rain like a ghost. Claire never forgot him. 10 years passed. Her life moved on, jobs, cities, relationships that never quite worked out. But that night haunted her. Not because of the danger, but because of him. Who was he? Why did he risk his life for a stranger? And why did he disappear without a trace? Now, she's older, sharper, and finally landing a dream position at a prestigious tech firm. Her first day is a blur of introductions and nerves. Then the conference room door opens, and there he is. The man from the alley. No doubt. He's older, confident, commanding, and he's her new boss. Claire feels the air leave her lungs. He acts like they've never met. And yet, something flickers in his eyes. Recognition? Regret? Or something darker? As the days unfold, Claire finds herself drawn deeper into the mystery of this man, James Morgan. Wealthy. Powerful. Untouchable. But something doesn't add up. Files are restricted. Questions are deflected. And there's one fact she can't shake: the night of the robbery wasn't random. She was targeted. And James was never just a stranger. Now, as secrets begin to surface and Claire starts digging into James's past, she discovers that their reunion wasn't coincidence. It was part of a plan set in motion years ago. But why? And what happens when the truth is more dangerous than the lie she's been living? Stay tuned, because everything Claire thought she knew is about to unravel. Claire couldn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. 10 years. 10 whole years she had wondered who that man was. Now here he was, James Morgan, the CEO of a billion-dollar tech firm, calm and polished in a tailored suit, standing in front of a room full of people like nothing had ever happened. Like he hadn't once saved her life. Like he didn't know her at all. But Claire knew. She'd never forget those eyes. Not after what happened in that alley. The way he had looked at her then, with urgency, with purpose. And today, there was something familiar in the way his jaw tightened when their eyes met. He remembered. He had to. So why was he pretending otherwise? The next morning at the office, she couldn't help but steal glances at him during meetings. James kept things professional, barely acknowledging her. But every now and then, he would pause mid-sentence, just briefly, like he felt her watching him. Claire started to wonder if she was imagining things. Was this really the same man? Could she be wrong? She needed to be sure. That evening, Claire stayed late at the office under the excuse of catching up on training materials. When everyone else left, she walked past James's office. The door was cracked open. She saw him at his desk, staring at a photo. Her heart skipped. She stepped back quietly, careful not to be seen. Just as she turned to leave, she heard him say quietly, almost to himself, "She's not ready yet." Claire froze. Who wasn't ready? Was he talking about her? She wanted to believe it was coincidence, but the hairs on her neck stood up. Something wasn't right. And if this was the same man who once saved her, why did she feel like she was being watched now? The next few days only got stranger. Her ID badge glitched twice, locking her out of the research wing. She caught a man in IT deleting what looked like her access logs. When she asked questions, people got quiet. Polite smiles, vague answers. Like there was some kind of rule no one wanted to break. Then came the envelope. It was waiting on her desk when she arrived, no return address. Inside, there was only a single photo. A surveillance still. From the alley. 10 years ago. She was in it, backed against the wall. And beside her, James, mid-strike, just before he knocked the robber down. The image was grainy but clear enough to prove he had been there. Claire felt her hands tremble. Who took this photo? Why now? She ran to the security team, but by the time they examined it, the envelope had vanished. Like it had never existed. Claire started to wonder if someone was trying to scare her, or warn her. She searched the employee directory for more information on James. Everything was polished. Too polished. No record before a certain year. No social media. No college photos. It was like his life started from scratch 10 years ago. The same year he saved her. The coincidences were piling up, and so were the questions. Why had she been in that alley? Why had the robber waited so long to strike until she was alone? Why had James been there at that exact moment? And now, why was he her boss, pretending not to know her, yet clearly aware? One night, Claire visited the alley again. Just to see if she remembered it right. The rusted fire escape. The graffiti. The brick wall where she had been cornered. But something new was there now, words etched into the wall, almost hidden, "You were chosen." She stepped back, breath catching in her throat. Chosen for what? A chill ran through her. And suddenly, she didn't feel so alone. Because someone was still watching her. And she had no idea who to trust anymore. Claire started carrying a notebook everywhere, writing down questions, clues, names. She didn't trust keeping it digital. After the incident with her ID badge and the deleted logs, she wasn't sure who at the company could monitor her device. Someone had eyes on her. And she was beginning to think that someone wasn't just James. Every day at the office felt heavier. Polished surfaces, polite smiles, endless meetings, beneath it all was something cold, something calculated. Claire began noticing patterns. Specific team members who always left early. Conference rooms that were booked but empty. And then there were the files, internal documents she wasn't supposed to see, but stumbled across by accident. One in particular stood out. It had no title, just a code, Project Seraphim. She opened it. Most of it was redacted, but a few lines remained. Subject A, Phase 1 initiated. Retrieval confirmed. Another line, target unaware of initial selection. Her heart sank. The date on the file matched the day of the alley incident. Her hands shook as she scrolled down. The final visible note read, Monitor integration successful. Awaiting reactivation. What did it mean? Was she, Subject A? And what kind of project was this? Claire printed the file and hid it in a hollowed-out book on her shelf. Just in case. That night, she called her old roommate from college, Tara, who now worked in cybersecurity. She didn't explain everything, just enough to raise red flags. Tara agreed to look into James Morgan's background, off the record. Claire knew it was risky bringing someone else into it, but she couldn't do this alone anymore. While waiting for answers, Claire tried to keep up appearances. But her performance was slipping. Her mind was constantly somewhere else. James noticed. One afternoon, after a long strategy meeting, he called her into his office. He didn't speak for a moment, just looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You're distracted," he finally said. "Is something wrong?" Claire wanted to confront him. She wanted to pull out the photo, the file, the notebook. But something about the way he asked the question felt rehearsed. Like he already knew the answer. "I'm just adjusting," she said calmly. James nodded. "I hope you'll find your place here. Some things take time. But don't worry, everything's going according to plan." She blinked. "What plan?" He smiled faintly. "You'll see." Claire left the room with a cold feeling in her chest. The next day, Tara called back. Her voice was tight. "Claire, I don't know who you're working for, but your boss's digital footprint is strange. It's like he didn't exist before 2015. I checked public records. His name shows up suddenly, connected to a private equity fund, then jumps to a tech firm acquisition. Before that, nothing. It's like someone built a brand new identity." Claire leaned against her kitchen counter, breath shallow. "There's more," Tara added. "I found a hit on the phrase, Project Seraphim. It was connected to a defense contract, then got buried. Classified. You shouldn't be anywhere near this." But Claire already was. And things were getting more complicated. She'd noticed something else lately, a man following her. First at the grocery store, then outside her building. Always the same coat, always just far enough to make it seem accidental. She confronted him once, but he ducked into a crowd and vanished. A few days later, a note appeared in her mailbox. "Stop digging. It's not your decision anymore." She didn't tell anyone. Not yet. She needed more pieces. At work, whispers began to grow. A quiet rumor about an employee who had left suddenly, no goodbye, no forwarding contact, just gone. Her name was Elena Cho. Claire checked the directory. Elena had once held the position Claire had just been promoted into. She pulled up the archived personnel records. Elena's photo showed a woman with sharp eyes and a confident smile. Last project listed? Project Seraphim. Claire sat back in her chair, her pulse racing. Something happened to Elena. And now Claire was walking the same path. She had two choices: stop asking questions and pretend nothing was wrong, or keep digging and risk everything. But deep down, she knew, she was already in too deep to stop. Claire stopped sleeping. Every sound outside her apartment felt like footsteps. Every knock on her door sent her heart racing. The deeper she dug, the more she realized this wasn't just about James. It was bigger, layered. There were people behind the scenes, controlling things. Pulling strings. And she was tangled in the middle of it. At the office, she found a hidden folder buried deep in a forgotten server. It was encrypted, but Tara helped her break in remotely. Inside were files labeled with names. Not just her own, but Elena Cho, Marcus Dillard, Nicole Reeves. Former employees. All had vanished quietly, one by one. The files described behavioral profiles, psychological evaluations, even tracking reports. Claire's stomach twisted when she found one with her own name. Notes were detailed. Subject displays elevated emotional intelligence. Unaware of origin event significance. Exhibiting patterns consistent with preselection phase. She stared at the screen, cold crawling up her spine. Origin event. The alley. The robbery. Was it all staged? A setup? She had replayed that night 100 times, but now, for the first time, she asked, was it ever real? Or was it an experiment? A test? The more she read, the more it made sense. James wasn't just there by coincidence. He had been assigned to her. Watching. Guiding. Grooming. But for what? One night, while walking home, she caught her shadow doubling. The man in the coat again. This time, she didn't run. She turned sharply into a convenience store and waited near the back. When he entered seconds later, she slipped behind him and followed him outside. She snapped a photo from behind. The flash triggered by accident. He turned. And for the first time, Claire saw his face. It wasn't someone she recognized from work. It wasn't even someone who tried to hide anymore. He gave a slight nod, almost like approval, and walked away, disappearing into the night. No words. Just acknowledgement. The next morning, James called her into his office again. This time, his tone was different. Calm, but sharp around the edges. He closed the blinds. "You've been very busy," he said quietly. "Looking into things that don't concern you." "They do now," Claire replied. "You made sure of that." James sighed. "We saved your life that night. You weren't supposed to remember. But you did. You always remembered. That's what made you special." Claire's mouth went dry. "You set that up? The robbery?" He didn't answer directly. "Everything since then has been a process. A design. We chose you because you could lead." Her voice cracked. "Lead what?" He leaned forward. "A program. People like you, survivors. Unbreakable. Loyal, once they understand the truth." Claire shook her head. "You think I'm going to help you after everything you've done?" He studied her for a long moment. Then said softly, "You already have." Later that day, her access card worked in places it never had before. Hallways beneath the main building. Labs. Rooms lined with two-way mirrors. She saw people in chairs. Silent. Watching screens. Their eyes vacant, trained. She saw files marked recalibration. Then she saw Elena. Not in person, but a video. Tied to a chair. Speaking slowly, like she was drugged. "If you're watching this, it's already too late." Claire dropped the tablet. Tara called again that night. "Claire, I found something else," she whispered. "That alley, 10 years ago. There was no police report. Number 911 call. I pulled street camera archives. The footage cuts out right before the moment you were attacked. It comes back online 2 minutes later. It was wiped. Why are they doing this?" Claire asked, barely holding back tears. Tara hesitated. "I don't know. But if you're still in that building, you need to get out. Now." Claire looked around her dimly lit apartment. And froze. Her front door was cracked open. She hadn't left it that way. She grabbed her notebook and phone and stepped back. Quietly. Every sound around her felt like it was closing in. The lights went out. And everything went silent. Claire didn't breathe. The hallway was completely dark now, shadows stretching along the walls like they were alive. She held her phone tightly, the screen dimmed, her thumb hovering over the emergency call button. But something told her no one would answer. Not this time. Then, a soft sound, a footstep behind her. Slow. Measured. She spun around. Nothing. Just the open door swaying gently, as if someone had just walked through it. Or was still inside. She edged backward toward the kitchen, where a drawer held an old utility knife. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it. The floor creaked behind her again. Then a voice. Low. Familiar. "You weren't supposed to be home yet." Claire turned, heart pounding. Standing in the shadows was Marcus Dillard. She gasped. He was supposed to be gone. One of the employees marked disappeared. She'd seen his name in the files, right next to Elena's. But he wasn't missing. He was standing in her apartment, alive, and calm, like he belonged there. "You, how?" Marcus raised his hands slowly. "Don't scream. I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why break into my home?" she snapped, stepping back, blade still in hand. "I didn't break in. Your security was already disabled when I got here. Someone else beat me to it. I came to warn you, Claire." She stared at him, struggling to process it. "Warn me about what?" He moved into the faint glow from the window. His face was thinner, eyes more hollow than in his ID photo. "You're not just part of a project. You're the fail-safe. If something goes wrong, they use you to reset it all." "What does that even mean?" Marcus shook his head. "You're the only one not altered. The rest of us, they made us forget. They erased and rewired memories. We were test cases. But you? You were never supposed to know. You were supposed to lead, not question." Claire's voice cracked. "James knew. He's been watching me, since the beginning." Marcus nodded. "He's not your enemy." "Not really. He was part of the original design. But something changed. Someone higher up hijacked the program. That's why Elena tried to run. That's why I disappeared." Claire's grip on the knife tightened. "Why now? Why show up after all this time?" "Because they're activating the next phase tomorrow. Project Seraphim wasn't just a trial, it was a prototype. And now, it's going global. You're not the only target anymore." Claire's pulse raced. "I have to stop it." "You can't, not alone," Marcus said. "But there's someone else. Someone on the inside. Elena wasn't caught, she escaped. She's alive. She's waiting for you." Claire felt her knees weaken. "Where?" Before Marcus could answer, her phone lit up. An unknown number. One message. "Do not trust him." Her eyes shot up to Marcus, but he was already stepping back toward the door. "Claire, listen, whatever they told you, I'm on your side." But her instincts screamed otherwise. Behind him, headlights flickered across the window. A black SUV pulled up quietly to the curb. Marcus froze. "They found me," he muttered. "We don't have time." He grabbed a flash drive from his pocket and tossed it onto her table. "Everything you need is on that. Find Elena. Don't trust anyone, not even James." He turned to leave, but Claire caught his arm. "Where do I go?" He looked back, eyes wide with urgency. "Someplace no one watches. Go back to where it started. The alley." And then he vanished into the night. Claire stood there, hands shaking, the drive cold in her palm. Across the room, her laptop lit up on its own. A single word appeared on the screen: "Run." Claire didn't wait. She grabbed her coat, stuffed the flash drive into her pocket, and slipped out the back stairwell, every step echoing like a countdown. Outside, the night air was sharp, the streets unusually empty for a city that never truly slept. She didn't head home. She didn't go to Tara's. She followed Marcus's words, back to where it all began. The alley. 10 years ago, she was just a scared college student walking home late from her shift. She remembered the way the shadows stretched that night, the sudden rush of fear, the flash of a knife, and then, James. His voice, his arms pulling her to safety, his face forever etched in her memory. Now, she stood in the same spot, heart pounding, the cold pressing in around her. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a door opened in the wall behind a dumpster, one she had never noticed. A narrow stairway led down, lit by faint blue lights. She hesitated only a second before stepping in. It led to a control room. Screens lined the walls, all showing surveillance footage, offices, labs, even her apartment. On one screen, she saw herself entering the alley just moments ago. They'd been watching this place the entire time. It wasn't just where it started. It was where they had built everything. At the center of the room stood a woman. Claire's breath caught. Elena? The woman turned. Her face was thinner, older, but unmistakably the same woman from the personnel file. She didn't smile, didn't speak. Just stepped aside, revealing a table with 2 monitors and a single red button between them. Claire stepped forward slowly. What is this? It's the core, Elena said quietly. This is where they control everything. Memories. People. You were always meant to activate it. That button triggers the final phase. Global rollout. But there's a second function. If you insert that flash drive, it rewrites the code. It breaks the cycle. Claire's mind spun. You said I wasn't altered. You weren't. That's why you're the key. On one monitor, she saw James. Standing in a white room, watching a screen that showed her. He looked exhausted. Worn. Not the confident CEO, but a man unraveling. He tried to protect you, Elena said. But he couldn't stop what came after. Claire pulled out the flash drive, staring at the button. So I choose. Shut it down or become part of it? Elena nodded. But you have to decide now. They're minutes away from remote override. Claire hesitated. Her fingers hovered over the port. Then the screen flickered. James's face appeared. Claire, if you're watching this, I've already failed. But they lied to you. Elena's not who she says she is. She built the system. I was just a shadow. You were supposed to destroy it. Claire turned to Elena, stunned. Elena's face didn't change. He's lying. Claire's hand shook as she plugged in the flash drive. Another message popped up. Override accepted. Truth unlocked. Suddenly, files flooded the screens, images, footage, old logs. Claire saw herself as a child, in a sterile room. Tests, lights, names called out. She'd been part of it all along. Not chosen by fate, designed. The robbery, the job, James, it was all a story carefully crafted to guide her back here. Her whole life was part of Project Seraphim. She looked back at Elena, who finally whispered, "You're not just the key, Claire. You're the system." Claire's eyes widened. She turned to the console, heartbreaking, and pressed a final command. Reset sequence initiated. Everything flickered. The screens went black. Then, silence. Claire stood alone in the room, unsure what she had just undone, or awakened. Behind her, the doorway sealed. And across the city, a different screen lit up, in a distant lab. A new file opened. Subject B, activated. The quiet in the underground control room was almost deafening. Claire stood motionless, watching the last traces of the system flicker out like dying stars. Her breath came in shallow waves, as if her body was still catching up to the weight of what she had just done. She had pressed the button. She had ended something massive, something invisible that had followed her for years. But she wasn't sure what remained in its place. Elena was gone. The moment the system shut down, she vanished into the tunnels beneath the city. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a whisper that echoed as she disappeared, "This won't be the end." Just the pause before another beginning. Claire didn't chase her. She walked back into the alley under the early morning sky, where a faint pink glow stretched across the horizon. The city moved as if nothing had happened. People drank coffee, hailed cabs, went to work, completely unaware that something monstrous had just been unmade. Back in her apartment, everything was untouched. But Claire felt like a stranger in her own life. Her apartment wasn't home anymore. It was just a room where the story started. Later that day, she met with Tara at a quiet diner miles away from downtown. Tara had seen the digital blackout, files vanishing from secured servers, cameras blinking offline, entire buildings in lockdown. "It's over," Claire said, stirring her coffee slowly. Tara didn't answer at first. Then she leaned forward. "Not completely. I checked the flash drive. Before everything went dark, a second protocol was triggered." "Something new?" Claire nodded. "Subject B. Do you think that's Elena?" Claire looked out the window. "No. I think it's someone else. Someone they were already grooming. Maybe someone like me. But if the system rebooted, it's different now. The code was changed." "So what now?" Tara asked. "Do we just go back to normal?" Claire smiled faintly. "There is no normal. Not anymore. But I'm going to live. For real this time. Not like I'm waiting for something to find me again." She left the city that week. No formal goodbyes. No public story. Just a quiet disappearance from the life she once had. She moved to a coastal town under a different name, started painting again, something she hadn't done since college. People there didn't know her past. They only knew the woman who liked early morning walks and asked too many questions about the stars. One morning, she received a postcard. No return address. Just a drawing of an alley. And written in neat handwriting, "System inactive." For now. She didn't panic. Instead, she pinned it to the wall above her desk, next to a photo of her younger self. Before the robbery, before James, before the program. She stared at it often, a reminder of everything she'd survived, of everything she'd once believed about fate, heroism, and control. Claire had learned something powerful through it all, that sometimes, the life that saves you isn't the one given to you, but the one you choose to live after everything else has been taken apart. And somewhere, deep in a server long thought destroyed, a blinking light came to life again. Quiet. Waiting. But this time, Claire would be ready.